If you have an addict or an alcoholic in your life, chances are you're angry, frustrated, worried, scared, a lot of emotions. We totally understand. We've worked with a lot of families going through the same thing that you're going through right now. You want them to get help. You would love for them to not have this addiction, but you don't know what to do. This is why we put together Family Reconnect. This is a program that is designed to put you first. Ultimately, if you help yourself, you can help them. In this, we're going to teach you how to set appropriate boundaries. We're going to teach you how to communicate effectively. We're going to teach you how to go into situations with your addict loved one that is going to be effective. A lot of times, family members and loved ones, they act out of emotion. We get that. We understand. But all that does is make it worse. You need people to come alongside you that can walk this journey with you. So starting on June 3rd, we are going live. We want you to be a part of this community. Because remember, you didn't cause this. You can't cure it, and you definitely can't control it. So June 3rd is when we're going live. You can find all the information at realrecoverytalk.com/FRC. Again, it's realrecoverytalk.com/FRC. We're excited to go on this journey with you, and we'll see you on June 3rd. Hey, everybody. In today's episode, it's myself and Stevie Buckets. We're talking about Chrissy Teigen. She recently decided to go out and start drinking again, which is on her, but Steve and I kind of unpack as to why we think that is and why young people in particular have a hard time staying sober. Oftentimes it's FOMO, fear of missing out, but we unpack what you should and can do to maintain your sobriety so you don't have to suffer a relapse. But before we get into that, let me talk to you about today's sponsor, SoberLink. SoberLink is a portable breathalyzer device. We talk about having tools in our toolbox when it comes to having sobriety, and SoberLink is something that you should have. It's a portable breathalyzer device. It has facial recognition, so it has to be the actual person to blow into it. It's tamper-proof, and you can also schedule out the time when you breathalyze. You could do breakfast time, lunchtime, dinner time. That's what most people do. And it's just added accountability. Now, it doesn't take the place of addiction treatment. It does not take the place of any sort of 12-step program, and it is not designed to catch you in a relapse. It is just designed to give you some extra accountability. So if this is something that you're interested in, or a family member or loved one is interested in this, make sure you go to soberlink.com/RRT. Again, that's soberlink.com/RRT to receive 50% off of your first device. Enjoy the show. Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I am your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Stevie Buckets.
Glad to be here.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, man.
First things first, thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use. And thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message, right, Steve?
That's exactly right.
How you doing?
I'm all right.
You a little low energy today, are we?
Yeah, a little low energy, but we'll get through it.
Why?
I had, you want me to get into it?
I mean, if you want to.
I had a medical infusion. It sounds more serious than it is, but I had it for a stomach condition. I have Crohn's disease, and I had it. My first infusion was today, and so I'm a little sleepy, but it's all right.
That's okay.
Yeah, no worse for wear.
Did you hear about Chrissy Teigen?
I did 5 minutes ago when you mentioned her.
Yeah, Chrissy Teigen. She's decided to pick up the sauce again.
Interesting. I wonder what led her to that decision.
Well, I was curious to know your thoughts on this. Did you put something in your mouth?
I have a mint.
That's so annoying.
I'm sorry. Let me swallow it.
I mean, you can chew it up and swallow it. Don't swallow the mint whole. I don't want you to choke.
That could be a first Live death on. I mean, we're not live, but recorded death. You can sell it on the black market.
I could,
Yeah.
I guess.
Anyways.
Podcasts of death.
Yeah.
Remember that website, Faces of Death?
I was just thinking about that.
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh.
it's horrific.
Anyways, yeah, Chrissy Teigen, she has a podcast thing on Audible, and she actually got sober in 2022, I want to say.
Okay. So she was a newcomer. Let's just call it what it is. With nothing wrong with being a newcomer, but she was new to the process.
Yeah, July 2022, she celebrated 1 year of sobriety. So she got sober 2021.
Okay.
July of 2021. And recently, her podcast is called Self-Conscious with Chrissy Teigen. And yeah, she opened up about picking up again. And what I found interesting, and I listened to some of it actually, which was surprising to me because I don't really care about her.
I don't even know why she's famous.
Me neither. I mean, she has a cookbook, and I think she was a model or something.
Okay.
She's married to John Legend.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah, so that's probably really why she's famous. But in the very beginning parts of this episode, she was talking about how she felt so much guilt and shame about picking up again. And then she proceeded to say how it's not even enjoyable for her.
Well, she got pretty honest, it sounds like.
Yeah, but she's still doing it.
Interesting. Well, that's interesting. I mean, sounds like she's an alcoholic if she says, I don't like doing this, but I mean, when I don't like doing something, I just don't do it. I mean, that's why I don't do drugs. And I'll if I like it, I know I like drugs, so I'll just keep doing it. That's kind of what separates from. I know tons of friends who, over the years, maybe had a bad night drinking and said, oh, I'm just not going to do that anymore. And they didn't have to. That doesn't work for me. And it sounds like it's not working for Teigen. Wait, Chrissy Teigen. Sounds like it's not working for Chrissy.
I don't know. I mean, when I was listening to it, honestly, I was wondering to myself if she was actually an alcoholic or if she was a problem drinker.
True.
Because I don't know exactly what prompted her to get sober in 2021. But she obviously had not drank for, call it 3, maybe 4 years, and she picked up again. But my question would be to her, what did you do over that time? Right? Because
For
sure. What I think she did was she just stopped drinking.
That's the thing. I have no idea did she mention she worked a program or anything?
I don't think
did she
so.
have any other sort of spiritual commitments, you know what I mean? To help her with that, to fill that void.
Or did she help any other women?
That too. Well, and by that I mean that's part of what I mean by spiritual commitments in terms of the service aspect.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Because the thing is, like, in terms of and I don't know in terms of, I don't do AA, and I know there's a difference between the problem drinker and the true alcoholic. Like some people even if they don't have an alcohol problem, I'm just going to stop drinking for a while just for health reasons.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's totally fine. But I just found it, I'm going to key on that because it is interesting that she said she doesn't even enjoy it, yet she's still doing it.
Yeah. And she was opening up about how she felt a lot of guilt and shame about even coming out and talking about picking up again.
Yeah, no, I applaud her for being that honest, and because that shame is like some of the hardest stuff after a relapse, especially if you have such a public platform. And we have our own versions of that in the rooms. Someone who maybe is well known, very highly respected, maybe sponsors a lot of guys, and they relapse. There's a lot of shame and guilt with that too, and a lot of times, it's hard for them to kind of admit it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that the lady that she was speaking with, her name escapes me. It's let me find it here. The lady's name that she was speaking with was Holly Whitaker, a best-selling author of Quit Like a Woman, The Radical Choice to Not Drink in a Culture Obsessed with Alcohol. Something that Holly said that really kind of I disagreed with in a way was she said, Chrissy, a sober person is no better than somebody that drinks. Because and basically she was saying this in the context of it doesn't make you a bad person because you picked up again. I agree with that aspect of it, but if we look on a personal level, somebody that is quote unquote sober is I think a better person than when they are drinking, obviously, but even when they are dry. And I think that's what Chrissy was. I think she was just dry.
I think it was like in your definition of better. Obviously, we have innate value as human beings, children of God, etc. You know what I mean? Like in terms of good, like we're all equal in that way. But in terms of good, in terms of quality of life, quality of how you are as like a wife, friend, mother,
right?
All that. I feel being sober. I know for me, being clean in recovery makes me a better person in the roles that I have in my life, and I just show up better.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know Chrissy Teigen at all. But
why do you think people, after having 3 or 4 years of sobriety, find it necessary to go back out?
I think it can be. That varies from person to person. The reasons, maybe they had a reservation in terms of.
What do you mean by that?
It could be a reservation of not being a true alcoholic, a reservation for maybe I know for me, I'll share. I didn't do it, but I shared it at a meeting actually somewhat recently. But I had a reservation about hallucinogenics when I got clean around that time. That's when like DMT was getting more into public mainstream. I didn't really have a lot of hallucinogenic experiences in my using. Like I did dropped acid a couple times, but it wasn't crazy. And I was like, in my first couple of years of recovery, I was like, damn, I kind of missed out on that. And so that was kind of a reservation for me. You know what I mean? Like it was like a big, and what I realized I was lacking was my conscious contact with a higher power. Is because I just was looking for a spiritual connection.
Yeah,
that's what I was looking for. That's like it was a big part of my using to begin with. Find that spiritual connection. I was looking for some ethereal being to show me the reason for life or the reason for my life or to answer these big questions. And it's interesting. I just didn't pick up even sometimes I wanted to. And like, as my conscious contact grew with God and as my relationship deepened, those reservations kind of just literally vanished. I had no inkling because I formed like a true, authentic relationship with God.
So when you were using drugs, you were doing that for spiritual purposes?
Well, I mean, there's like very few. I didn't smoke crack for spiritual purposes. It wasn't nothing spiritual at all about it.
Right.
But in terms of like, when you first when I first got into like drugs, again, I'm like just living. I was a teenager. I wasn't really just like wasn't like super conscious thoughts. But I mean, I was a lost kid. I remember smoking pot. It did a couple things. It filled a void. It quieted the negative voices in my head. It made me feel more and I did feel more spiritually. I don't think it was authentic. I don't think it was real, but I did feel more, connected at the time, and then eventually, unfortunately for me being the addict that I am, the pot once eventually stopped having an effect and I started getting into heavier and heavier stuff. Really, whatever you had, like, Tom, we're at a party. What do you have? I have this. And I just will change my state of mind for, a couple hours. Yes, I'll take it. I don't care. I don't care if it was Coke. I didn't care if it was crack, oxys. Oxy was a huge thing. That was like the drug really that there's nothing spiritual. It's the exact opposite of something spiritual, and everything good is those narcotics, and like Oxy and Roxy's, they ruined my life, and but at that point it was just more getting outside myself again, and then there's the physical aspect of it where I was completely hooked on and strung out on. Um, but I do feel like and I think all humans in general are searching for a spiritual connection. That's what I believe. And I know for me, I was. Again, it wasn't like every time I picked up a drug, I'm looking for spiritual connection. But like, that is something I've yearned for my whole life, was a connection, was a kind of relationship with a higher power to just for a reason of being,
You said earlier, filling a void.
Mhm.
And I think that's a lot of times what we're doing when we're using, unbeknownst to us. We don't know that, but we're looking to fill some sort of empty hole, right? And inside recovery, they talk about filling a God-sized hole.
That's right.
And so when you say, I'm searching for something spiritual, obviously we're not getting high in the moment thinking, oh, I'm trying to grow closer to God. That's not what we're doing.
Right.
But hindsight always being 2020, when we are sober and we go through a program, whatever that is, and we continue to grow on our spirituality and stuff like that, then we start to understand that there's nothing that can fill that void other than a higher power.
Right.
And so it's kind of like when we put some sobriety time together, and I've said it to myself, I probably would have spared myself a lot of heartache and stuff like that had I known that in the beginning, and a lot of times people, but we don't know what we don't know in the moment. And it just drives us deeper and deeper and deeper into our addiction, because it's really not that hard to get clean and sober. It's really, if you really think about it, it's not. You have to make a decision that this is what I'm going to do. There's a blend of willpower involved, right? There's some probably consequences have to happen.
I think there's, not to cut you off, but there's versions of hard. I do think it's difficult to break that cycle, but then there's another level of hardness, is staying sober, staying in recovery.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's what, I don't know if I would use the word hard, but I think it's very subtle. Like Chrissy Teigen, for instance, I don't think it was hard for her to like pick up, It was just something that, it was a very subtle thing.
Yes.
And it just, one day it was, hey, and I think she even talked about it. She just had a glass of wine. I guess because of how subtle and how it can just creep up on you, I guess can make it hard, in the sense of we have to always be on guard and constantly work on ourselves and understand that, I'm susceptible. Is susceptible the right word?
Yeah.
To relapse as anybody else is.
For sure.
And it can come out of nowhere. That's the scary part about it, is that, you talk to people that have had relapses in the past, and a lot of times they say, I don't even know how it happened. It just happened. I was at the bar, and next thing I know, I had a beer in my hand. I've had a lot of conversations with people like that. Have you?
For sure. And and you can do like what I call like an audit of someone's recovery if you have that conversation with them, kind of breaking down exactly what happened. And then we go back to like that kind of goes into what we were talking about, the reservations. A lot of people in their mind, I don't know if this is Chrissy Teigen at all, but like at a certain point I am going to drink again, and they don't lose that thought. They don't never let it go. They romanticize it. It's a plan that's going to eventually happen. And that's the great thing when you work a program, even if you have a thought like, maybe I could drink one day, which I think is completely healthy, especially the people who are young, you know what I mean?
You think it's healthy to have that thought?
No, well, it's completely normal. And it could be, and I don't know, healthy is the right word, but like completely normal. And maybe healthy, actually, yes, because like at least it lowers the stakes. You know what I'm saying? The idea, like, you can never drink again. Just be
Yeah.
open to possibility. Not saying maybe in a year, maybe in 10 years, but not that I am going to one day. Again, maybe that's, and I feel like in terms of the people who just wind up in a bar, that's more of it's the difference, the slight difference between maybe one day to I'm going to one day. You know, and I'm going to one day makes it harder to work a program because what's the point?
Right.
I mean, I could do this AA thing for a little while, but I am gonna drink eventually. I am, rather than I'm gonna be open minded, maybe, but maybe not.
I
You
would
know,
rather somebody say I am going to drink again someday than I'm not going to drink ever again.
in terms of what you've seen, in terms of like the
In
success,
terms of what I've seen,
like
and
being honest with themselves.
yeah,
No, I agree with that. I agree with that in terms of I'm never again. That's like two extremes. Maybe that's a difference in terms of like I'm absolutely going to do it again, and I'm never gonna do it again. Because like really, like that's crazy. I don't know if I'm never gonna use again. I like to not. I'm gonna do everything in my power to not.
yeah,
But I know how crazy this disease is, and how I know people who I knew a guy who had 40 years clean, speaking at our big men's retreat, who was like the Obi-Wan Kenobi of our fellowship, of our little chapter of our fellowship, as respected as you can be, and he eventually relapsed.
really.
Through various reasons, yeah, and he's no
After
longer with
40
us. It
years.
was like he had like about 40 years, yeah.
Wow.
He had um, this was probably about 7 years ago since he passed, and like, yeah, like a year or 2 years prior, he was our big speaker, but he had a medical condition that, um, the medicine was very it was painful. It was just painful, and he had issues with that. So we started looking for online at other remedies, loopholes, if you will. That wasn't exactly like going on down to a dark alley getting his fix, but what a loophole he could do online. But at the end of the day, was getting high, and he found that, and eventually he was drinking again, and he
Mm.
was dead. I think within a year.
From drinking.
I don't know the exact reason, but I know like that was
Yeah.
what was really.
It didn't help.
It didn't help.
He may have been able to get through the medical stuff had he not been drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. I know other people who have. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, I don't want to say what it was just because
No, it's fine.
but like I know people who got through in recovery. I know actually quite a few people who got through it. It was a very painful drug. And now I actually think that drug, they have a much easier way, but I'm talking like years ago now. But, it was a painful drug and it wasn't easy. And he found his own way to deal with it. Unfortunately, it was a way that separated him from recovery.
Mm.
And, but I do what you're saying, like, and I've heard Ben talk about this, like when he was going through the steps, like I am in terms of, I think something, I don't want to, I'm paraphrasing, but Ben's telling his sponsor saying like, you will drink again. And I interpret that as you're an alcoholic. This is just what we do. You know what I mean? So I get what you're saying for sure.
Well, if somebody, somebody comes in and says, I'm done. I'm never going to drink again.
That's alarming. Like, dude, you have an hour clean.
Yeah. Like, yeah, you're still burping beer.
Yeah, exactly.
And now all of a sudden you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, slow down a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I've had countless conversations with people that have said that, and I don't know, probably all of them or a large majority of them have drank.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get somebody that says, yeah, I'm probably going to drink again. Okay, that's fine.
More realistic, more workable.
It's more workable.
Yeah.
Why? Why do you think that? Give this a shot. See if your life doesn't improve.
Mm-hmm.
Even, there's the saying, we'll refund your misery. And you see that a lot with young people. In particular, young drug addicts. wrap their head around the fact that they won't be able to ever have a legal drink.
Yeah, I got it.
And it's that's a tough shell to crack. You know, imagine being 19 years old, 20 years old, sitting in a treatment center.
No, for sure. It's tough. I mean, forever seems like a long time. And me and you both got clean relatively young.
Yeah. How old were you?
24.
Yeah, I was 26.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's like a baby compared to a lot of addicts, alcoholics. But now we can see what a blessing that was to be able to enjoy like the last 15, 16 years of our life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it goes fast.
It does. It goes really fast. But it's at the time when I remember for my first time in treatment, I was 21 or 22 or something like that. And the idea was it just might as well tell me to climb Mount Everest. That was the equivalent without my substances, no matter how much using ruined my life. The idea of that I still couldn't figure it out how to use successfully, because that was my medicine for all intents and purpose.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where, going back to Chrissy Teigen, like, she missed something.
Mm-hmm.
She definitely did. She missed something. I firmly believe I'm recovered. And I know there's always that debate.
Yeah, AA has recovered. NAs, we say we're in recovery.
Yeah.
We do have a reading called, though, We Do Recover.
Yeah.
And in terms of, like, we don't have just a D at the end, if you will.
Yeah. But she definitely missed something. What it is, I don't know. I would love to find out and just have a conversation with her. Maybe that'll happen one day. But
that'd be very illuminating. I think I find those conversations so interesting. What happened? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Why did you find it necessary?
Yeah.
You had 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? And it wouldn't be in any sort of context of shame or anything.
No,
I'd legit want to know.
Same here. I do exactly. Like, from what I hear, honestly, it's a lot of it's again the expression. I love it. You hear a lot is like you don't. It's just the relapse happens for the relapse.
Yeah.
And even though it was like I just found myself, and I just suddenly I had a beer bottle, I had a Heineken in my hand at the bar. Yes, but no. There was decisions and there was action and inaction taken that led up to that moment.
Right.
Yeah,
nobody just walked up to you, held a gun to your head and said, drink this.
If after alumni tonight, I go to the bar, I say I want to go watch a sporting event at a bar, which I do frequently, at like a sports bar, and which I've done a million times since I've been clean. If tonight I did that and for whatever reason I drank, something happened. It wasn't just a random happenstance occurrence, in my opinion.
I agree. And I think that a lot of times people have FOMO. Young, in particular, young people.
Fear of missing out 100%.
Yeah. And that could be something that Chrissy has. She's in the limelight a lot. She's a celebrity.
Parties,
all that stuff. Wining, dining, doing whatever. Los Angeles, New York. That's the society that we live in. So there may be, but I don't know.
But in fairness, you look at someone like Mel Gibson and Robert Downey Jr., who have I think at this point decades sober, and like maybe that's the difference. Like Chrissy Teigen's a problem drinker rather than the true alcoholic. Like Robert Downey Jr., who's obviously his consequences have been well documented, and where now it's like his literally his life, him walking this planet is contingent on him working a program.
Yeah.
Rather than the problem drinker. And again, I don't know the full, because that's more AA thing. I don't know full depth, but it sounds like someone whose life maybe becomes a little unmanageable when they drink.
Yeah. I mean, it's, in my simplistic way of putting it, alcoholism would be continuing to drink despite negative results.
Mm-hmm.
A problem drinker can, they have some negative stuff, but they can shut it off too, and then maybe they'll drink for a little bit, have a couple consequences, then shut it off. I don't know. That's a good question for Eric or Ben.
Mm-hmm.
Definitionally, what's going to differentiate the two? But to me, an alcoholic cannot stop.
Yeah.
right?
They got to be stopped.
If I were a Chrissy Teigen and I go and I never drank wine, I hate wine, I think it's gross. But if I went and had a glass of wine, all bets are off.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot stop. I think she's capable of stopping, which would differentiate, which could make her put her more into the problem drinker type. And at that point, you have to really ask yourself, what is the motivation behind stopping? Because if a problem drinker can put the plug in the jug for a period of time and be okay, fine.
For sure.
Maybe you don't need a program. Maybe you don't need a spiritual program of action and these sorts of things. Or maybe you don't need to help other people through sobriety and stuff like that. But you're never going to get the full understanding, the full scope of what sobriety is truly supposed to be about. Now, for me, I know I can't stop. I'm not a problem drinker. I'm a full-blown alcoholic because I've tried multiple times to stop only to fail myself and, dig the hole even deeper. So it was a lot more, I needed a lot more invasive, prescription.
Yeah.
In order to get sober. And Chrissy may not need that. But young people have it's an uphill battle for them a lot of times.
It really is, it requires a lot of discipline too, because then you still have your whole friends group who may or may, I'm sure, using something to some degree, and the peer pressure that comes along with that, and like the idea of going to college and not drinking is like, so it's nuts. And a lot of that, honestly, unfortunately, requires a lot of experience, a lot of putting the old lab coat on and doing some experiments, like just realistically.
Yeah.
Because maybe this is a phase. I don't know. Usually if you land in a rehab, something's up.
Right.
I'll say that. And I'll say a lot of the people I know who I've kept in contact with since I've worked in recovery, since I've been in recovery, a lot of them, those people who are, if they're even still alive, a lot of those kids who were once my age at 24, 22, 23, 20, almost 2 decades later, they're now mid-30s, early 30s, 40, who've never built a life on that one question, maybe I'm not an alcoholic, and that's depressing.
That is. Wow. Well, Chrissy, if you're out there and you want to talk sobriety, just let us know. I'd love to have the conversation with you and figure out why you felt it was necessary. No shame. It's on you. Totally fine. Anyways, what else is going on, Buckets? Anything else?
Got a good alumni tonight.
Okay.
It's going to be good. Got a good speaker.
Good.
It's going to be a good group. We got a good group going here, and they're very inquisitive.
Yeah.
About their recovery. We're gonna eat a little chicken parmesan.
Ooh.
I'm not going to because I'm a plan. I'm trying to stick with it.
Yeah.
I am sticking with it, but it'll be good. Life's good, man.
All right. Well, that's good. I'm proud of you, Steve.
Thank you, man.
All right. That is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us. info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. That is it. We will see y'all later.